All righty. Welcome to the 27th episode of the Failing to Success in Multifamily show, a podcast where we appreciate, discuss, and reflect on the setbacks real estate investors have had leading up to their success. Today, I have a very special guest and the honor to have Dave on as a guest. I got introduced to Dave a couple of months ago through a coaching and mentorship program called the Deal Room that he and I were both in at the time. Real estate investor, developer, founder, and managing director of DW Capital. After a successful career in consulting and startups, Dave transitioned into being a full-time real estate investor and developer and built up a solid portfolio for him and his family. Now, Dave works to educate and provide these types of wealth building opportunities to others. Now, I'm sure that behind all his success is sacrifice, dedication, and a whole lot of hard work. So I can't wait for you all to hear his journey, his successes, but most of all, and the reason why we're here today, his failures, as he continues to reach his goals within multifamily. Dave, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. So guest number 27, that's a pretty big deal. That means we've been going for a little while. We're getting traction here.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And I'm very excited for your episode. And, you actually may be one of the best stories that we have here today so far in the podcast. So no pressure,
Not taking no problem. Good thing you don't see me shaking in the background here. But no, again, I'm so thrilled to be here. I love talking to you. I love talking about my experience because I took a non-traditional route into real estate and what I'm doing now, which is more private equity / development work. So I wear a couple of different hats that we can go into in a minute. But yeah, I think you bring up a very interesting point about everyone makes this look so easy.
Yeah.
And when it works, it's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't talk about the steep learning curve there is.
Absolutely.
The best education is doing it and finding people around you that can support you and build that tribe. But yeah, there's work to be had here, and not everything happens according to plan.
So true. And I think that's the best part about our industry, right? Because frankly, I don't know about you, Dave, if everything was all smooth and dandy and flowery, where's the fun in that, So every now and then I do like a little challenge, a little hill to climb, right? Why not? But man, I think I did a pretty poor job at introducing you. So please let the listeners know who Dave is.
Sure. So we got to start back to see how much of a big computer geek I really was before any of this real estate. So I got my start as a teenager fixing computers before this thing called the internet. And my parents would drop me off in local office parks, and I would fix computers and kind of hook them up like oscilloscopes for engineers and all that kind of fun stuff. And that kind of snowballed, and I was doing that as kind of a side gig while I was finishing up school. And then I had a non-traditional start. I went to college, but it didn't stick at first. And I was still working, fixing computers and doing things. And I wound up getting hooked up with a bunch of guys who were a bit older than me. They could go to the bar. They had wives. I did not. And I wound up putting in one of the first networks for a company that's not here anymore, but a lot of people know as a household name, which is Polaroid. So in Massachusetts, where I live, Polaroid has their headquarters. There's 5 different sites. And I went around kind of putting them on their first network. So I touched every PC, set up the first servers, etc. Fast forward when I finally got to college, and again, it's a long story, but this is not the route to real estate at first.
Right.
I went into consulting. So I got headhunted to run some computer systems within a consulting company. And in the interview, this just didn't see what I want to do. I want to be more of a consultant. And we had a conversation, and I became one very quickly. And that was the first chapter of my professional working career. And I went from startup to startup to startup till it was me and 3 guys in a room. And we built our own, consulting company before it got sold to private equity. So that was my non-traditional technology and startup career. And then I moved into healthcare IT, where I was working and wound up putting myself out of a job there every couple of years and taking on new roles and testing new things. And then I went full-time real estate. Now, I won't say that real estate, my jumping off point 7 or 8 years ago into full-time real estate as an investor and a developer, which I'll talk about in a minute, wasn't really my first foray into real estate.
Mhm.
So we talk about a lot of mistakes and failing within real estate. I got lucky with a lot of mistakes and just happenstance that kind of put me on this trajectory. So pre-Bigger Pockets, I just didn't want to pay rent when I was in all these startup consultancies, because I was traveling all the time. I was on planes, trains, and automobiles, and I didn't like paying rent. And so I wanted to buy a place. And in Boston, a lot of the rental stock is 2, 3, and 4 family apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And so I had a friend of mine who was a mortgage broker. We used to play poker every week. And I said, hey, do you mind giving me a pre-approval for it? Well, I thought I was looking at a condo, just 1 unit. He thought I was looking at the building, and he gave me a pre-approval for the whole building. And I looked at him and I said, I think you made a mistake. And he's like, no, this is fine. It's like, I don't qualify for this. And he had to walk through the mechanics of how it is to own rental property. And for those that don't know or haven't been through it yet, they factor a certain amount of the rent for what you will qualify for in your income if it's less than a 4 family. So that's a residential purchase. Anyone who hasn't bought a home before and you're a real estate investor, buy yourself a 4 family.
Yeah.
You get the best financing, the lowest down payment, and you'll do what I did, which is I started living for free because we house hacked it.
Yeah.
Had a college roommate moved in, we renovated the unit while we were in it, we added a bedroom, we did all this stuff. Then we moved downstairs, rented the upstairs. At the end of that, I moved out and bought another house, and my roommate stayed and got a new roommate. So that was the beginning of my real estate career. But I was too busy working in startups, and I got my MBA at night. I did a whole bunch of other stuff. So that was the jumping off point of 7 years ago. So very long story on that. But you asked me how I got started in real estate.
I absolutely love it. No, Dave, that was such a great background, right? Because I want people to understand that, getting into real estate doesn't necessarily mean that you need to, come from either a real estate background or get in from a real estate position, so to speak, in order to, begin your real estate investment journey, right? What I really find interesting about your story, Dave, is that you took a traditional route in a sense where you had a very cushy career, wouldn't you say? Like, as far as where you could have taken it to, right?
For sure. I wasn't doing manual labor. I was very fortunate. I mean, definitely, white collar work. I was very, very fortunate for that.
Yeah. So, what I really want the listeners to take out from your story is, you could have continued on to an even more amazing career than you had built for yourself, right? You were entrepreneurial from the get-go. You built multiple startups, and you were part of multiple startup exits, which is very important too. Why didn't you continue on that trajectory? Why didn't you want to, be the best person that you could have been within that industry? What made you shift into real estate at that time? What was that light bulb moment?
I think what happened for me was my priorities shifted, and I got a different set of perspectives on life. And so when we're young, usually what we're taught is to trade our time for money.
Yeah.
Work hard. At one point, I mean, we didn't even talk about this, but there's portions of my time where I was working two plus jobs to try and save cash and to do things before all of this stuff going on. So I've worked retail, I was working in restaurants. I've done a lot of things in that early formative years to do it. But where my trajectory came when I was working at a healthcare IT company, I had gotten married, I had my first child, and I said, I want to be around. I grew up in an age where my father went to work every day, and my mother basically took care of us or worked part-time. And he'd come home at dinner time, we'd all have dinner, and then we'd go to bed. So there wasn't as much involvement and interactivity, and I wanted to be a different kind of parent.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was trying to create the lifestyle that I wanted. And I saw real estate as being this beautiful path to it. And I am a lifelong learner. I like to solve problems. I like to build relationships. Regardless of the career that I had moving forward, not everybody needs to do that. It's just a question of where their skills are, where their energies are desired. Again, if I knew what I knew now and could teach my 20-year-old self, I'd be in a very different spot now. I'm very thankful for what I've done and what I've learned, but it's really a question of priorities.
Yeah.
I'm not chasing, for me personally, I'm not chasing Ferraris. I'm not looking for private jets, but I'm looking for really special moments to spend with my family, to be able to take vacations, to be able to be present. Something to admit here is I pick my kids up most days from school and love it. I love having that opportunity. I didn't get to do that before, but that's my why. That's why I do this. And the secondary piece is, as I have seen a lot of my other friends, family, and the people that I meet that are still trading their time for money, I want them to know there's an exit path if they want it. There is financial flexibility if they want it. And nobody teaches, the internet has helped a lot, but when I was 22 or 25 or 30, nobody teaches about real estate investment or syndicated finance or private equity. You hear the terms, but you don't really understand what it is. And if you heard of it, that's for rich people. That's not accessible to me. And so I like sharing that and educating and bringing people along and hopefully give them a lifestyle and financial flexibility as they kind of go through this process.
Yeah, very, very well said, Dave. I agree with you so much. I always say that real estate is the investment vehicle for the average person in America or even in the world to create the lifestyle that they want, that they desire, that they need, right? And it's such a great perspective from your end as well, that you realize that yes, the career path was great, was amazing, but would it have given me the lifestyle that I wanted, as far as spending time with your kids, your wife, right? Like the vacations, right? Really, what brings you true purpose, true meaning, right? And it's so amazing that you shifted not only that perspective, but you shifted your actions into matching, and being intentional in creating that lifestyle for yourself. I think that's so amazing. And one of the things that you mentioned as well is, and what I got from it is, real estate is super forgiving, right? And obviously, we're going to dive into one of the challenges, or a few of the challenges that you encountered in real estate. But real estate is so forgiving. It truly is such a forgiving investment vehicle, in a sense where, if you fail or mess up, right, in the long run, it really doesn't matter, right? Well, obviously, depending on how badly you mess up, but
don't mess up too badly, but yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I love about our industry. And I love the fact that you are bringing that awareness to passive investors that may want to get it into investment vehicles that would allow them to live the life that they want. And I also love the fact that you also started out house hacking. For individuals who are not familiar with house hacking, it is when you buy one unit, or however many units. Typically, it's for the first time investor, it's 1 to 4 units. You live in one unit, and then you rent out the other units in the hope that you can decrease your living expenses in order to save more capital to.
I mean, Tinny, house hacking is as old as time. It's the same thing as people getting roommates. I mean, I'm seeing people in expensive markets that are able to buy a single family. And one of the guys I just spoke to, I kid you not, he lived in his laundry room for a year and he rented out the bedrooms. He made $500 to live in this, and then saved up and then bought another house where he actually got to live in a bedroom.
That's me.
So there we go. As I said, so we're not talking that it has to be a multi-unit building, but it certainly provides a way to be efficient. But real estate scales that way. It's so wonderful this way. And again, a couple things you said before that I just want to kind of call out again is real estate and owning a home is the path towards generational wealth.
Yes,
I know we have a generation removed from the immigrant story. When my grandparents came here, they never owned property. They rented in the Bronx in New York in a 2-bedroom apartment for my entire life. My parents were the first to go to college, first to own a house. And, unfortunately, I don't have my parents anymore, but that little bit of equity that was left over gets passed on. And I'm in the position now that we have to do estate planning and thinking about what is the path down for others. So real estate is a number one thing to do that. The second is it is forgiving. We're going to talk about failures in a minute. I've got a doozy for how I started in this, industry full time. But I always look at it as paid education. There's a wonderful thing. As long as you take appropriate risks and just do something, action is so important. There's so much fear because it's a big purchase or because it's something new, but action is so important to take a step in the right direction that with enough time and as long as you've given yourself some level of cushion, it's very forgiving. And I like to call it paid education.
Yeah.
Because unlike the stock market, you buy a stock for $100 and it goes to zero. Trust me, I owned WorldCom stock before your time, but it's worth zero and I paid a lot more for it than then. That's it. But if you're buying a building that people are living in or want to live in a neighborhood or place that people are and want to be, you have a hard asset. You have intrinsic value because it's there.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to zero. If it goes to zero, we've got a problem that, the housing market doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Very well said. Very, very well said. Well, Dave, before we jump into a specific deal that you encountered and that was challenging, I want to talk about that transition, right? How was that transition for you? Because I always think back to how the transition was for myself. As you know, real estate is a relationship business, right? It's a relationship world, and that is essentially how we're able to scale and grow our portfolios and get all the amazing things. So how was that transition for you into the corporate day-to-day that you were in, right? The corporate slash entrepreneurial day-to-day that you were in to essentially transitioning into the real estate world?
That is a great question, and that's going to be me being very honest. It was really hard. I'm used to so much of my social circle, the people that I talk with, I bounce ideas off with within my corporate environment. And even as an entrepreneur, you always had groups and teams around you. Within the transition, at first, I was elated because I didn't answer to anyone else. I got out of the corporate job. I had flexibility. I could go for walks or runs any day of the week, and I chose my schedule. But then you have to figure out they actually do have to work. And I think the hardest part for me, and it took me a couple of years to figure this out, was I needed to find a team. I needed to find my tribe and my peers. We talked about how we met within the deal room. I joined that to find my tribe because I'm still being surrounded by people who motivate you, who provide positivity, not, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. That's so scary, but that sounds really interesting. How can I help you? Is such a different mindset. Again, not to keep going into nuggets of advice, but lessons learned from me. I would have started partnering and teaming up with people so much sooner if I was a smarter person. As much as I love relationships, I had great relationships with my contractors, the planning department, with the building inspector, but it didn't really help me scale until I started partnering and building those teams. But it was a tough transition at once. And, now I'm really excited. In fact, I love meeting more people. I love partnering with people. And, whether it's on the investment side or on the deal side, just bringing it all together. I mean, that's back to my two superpowers that I love the best. It's problem solving and creating relationships. So, I mean, what more could you ask for?
Love that. Love that. And you've used your two superpowers to continue to grow your company. Now, Dave, I want to dive into a specific deal, right?
Oof.
As you know, in this industry, right, it's never all, flowers and rainbows. We do encounter some challenges, right? Which sometimes we love, only when looking back on them, right? So Dave, tell us about a deal that you've recently closed on or are currently working on. What does the deal look like? How did you find it? And what are some of the challenges that you encountered? And how did you overcome it?
Well, I'm going to instead go back to the beginning of my career in real estate and tell you all the wrong things that happened and all the wrong things that I did, and tie back to the point of being, thankfully, real estate's a forgiving business.
Love that.
So when I left corporate America, I was fortunate enough I didn't mean to become a developer. Again, so much I didn't mean to buy a multifamily property. I thought I was going to flip a house, but within Massachusetts, we don't really flip houses that often. They tend to be deeper renovations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got myself wrapped up in 2 projects without a lot of experience right out of the get-go, for condo conversions. So you take an existing 2, 3, or 4 unit building, you gut it completely down to the studs, and you rebuild it as new luxury condos, and then sell them for the sum of their parts, which is worth 20% more just for making them condos, but then you're making it new construction, and very healthy exits. You make a lot more money than a typical flip, very, very high end. But I didn't know a lot about construction. And although I'd house hacked, and I probably could paint and tile, this isn't work that I was going to do or was good at. And so we had gotten, I'm going to tell you the whole story. Our part number 1 is we just bought these basically sight unseen because the numbers worked and they were in areas we liked.
Mm.
I mean, I drove by them and, I said, oh, that's good enough, but I didn't really know what I was looking at or looking for.
Mm.
So we get into it, and we had a contractor recommended to us who worked with a lot of flippers, who was really inexpensive and amazingly available whenever the project was going to start, and shows up in his truck, which was, rusting out and beating up, and tells us all the right things, takes a nice big deposit check because we're working on nice big stuff. And then nothing happens.
Mm.
And so I'm like, well, all right. And so I call him and I check in. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, just been real busy. By the way, it's a bigger job that I think I need another deposit. You need another deposit? Okay. So I gave him another deposit. The work hadn't started. You see any red flags yet? I certainly don't do this today.
Yeah.
And I like to believe the best in people. In my professional world, it's trust and verify. For some reason, I'm just so excited about the opportunity to do this that my brain shut off and I was too much excited to get going. So finally, I start threatening him and saying, listen, if you can't start this project, I want the deposits back and we'll find someone else. Oh, no, I'll be there. Next week, huge dumpster shows up, crews show up, and they gut the whole building. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm on my path. Except the week after that, I get a notice from the city for a violation of doing work without a permit. And they put a big orange sticker on the project site, stop work notice. That's the last thing you want to do. So needless to say, my project is now dead in the water, and I am very unhappy. I can't use the colorful language I'd like to do on this podcast, but I was very unhappy. And I called him up, and he didn't return my phone calls. Shocking. So short story long, because we have some time, but I want to move on to the lessons learned and what I had to do after this. We wound up suing him, and we got a settlement with him, and he took all the money from us and a couple other people and tried to open a restaurant. That was his passion project. And he just figured he'd get the restaurant open in time to get the money back to eventually come back to my project. But 6 months had gone on, didn't happen. Restaurant didn't open. We got, 60, 70 cents of the dollar back, moved on. But here's where I got to learn a lot. And again, thankfully, real estate's forgiving. We had to find a new contractor. So this time I learned, and we screened 4 of them. And of the 4, we also said, listen, this is what our business model is. This is what we're trying to do. We don't have a lot of extra capital because the first guy stole it, but we'll do a profit share with you if you're interested in doing it. We'll guarantee that you'll make at least X out of our pocket. If not, you can make X plus Y. Thought that was a pretty good deal. He was a great guy. He was a great first partner. Shook on it, and we started getting to work. But I went with him everywhere. We went to the planning department together, and I said, listen, I'm the owner. Here's what happened. I just want to understand, what do we need to do? What should we do? What's compliant? What's not? And they were really helpful at pointing me in the right direction. I'm a natural problem solver, so I was reading zoning code and looking at the bylaws. I'm like, oh, does this mean this and does this mean that? And they were very, thankfully, I found good departments that were willing to talk to me. So went through the planning board, got everything approved that we're supposed to do. Building department, same thing. Well, wait a minute, what do we need to do here? What's important here? What do you need from us? So every day I'm going to this job site and I'm learning how to build a house.
And you're learning.
And they're teaching me how to frame. They're teaching me what goes in what order. I'm talking to the electricians. I'm talking to the plumbers. In our area, it's usually a bunch of huge Brazilian crews. Like my partner was a Brazilian guy, and so all of his crews were like family, friends, and everyone's Brazilian. So we have this over the summer. We have these giant barbecues. At the end of the workday, we have these big barbecues and pop a couple of beers. It was awesome. I actually had a lot of fun with it. But they taught me everything, and they were loyal, and they were good, and they did everything to teach me. And at the end of this process, we had these beautiful new townhouses because it was supposed to be 3 units up and down, but the building was structurally unsound. After the guy had done everything, it didn't comply. We had to get it approved as townhouses. We had to get the new code upgraded for how we were going to build it. But it wound up being really beautiful units that we sold in the middle of winter. And we eked out a pretty decent profit. Now, I'll tell you, we made 30% on our money for 2 years of work,
wow.
Which it was plus. I was happy with that. That's a pretty good return. Now,
yeah.
I did another one and it was, made 120%. So, you quick learning curve trying to figure it out.
Slightly better.
But that was really, that project, and trust me, I wasn't sleeping. I was stressed out. This was really a horrible time. And anyone who tells you that active construction development to real estate is stress-free is probably lying to you. You have to care about it. And, I've moved on to take money from my investors. We pool our funds together to buy buildings. My investors can't lose money. I'll lose my money before they lose theirs. I lose sleep if it's not a good deal. I lose sleep if there's, ripples or things that I can't fix. But that first project was so instrumental in learning how it works, what you're supposed to do. And truthfully, it really set me up on a really positive path because I realized that the amount of brain damage from that one project and what I learned from it wasn't worth 2 to 3 units at a time. So I moved on to doing 7 or 8 units at a time. And then I realized that the brain damage for 7 or 8 units was better to partner with someone who just needed some backup support, and we could do 40 units at a time.
Yeah.
So it certainly scaled up back to when I finally figured out partnerships matter.
I love that.
But because I know the development game and I learned that talk, I understand their problems, I understand their challenges, and I also understand how to structure and partner with them that help the investors win.
Yeah.
So that was that one piece was really, really pivotal in me being able to do what I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
Yeah. Such an instrumental lesson, right? To get you to where you are now, right? And really the main lesson that I'm getting from your story, Dave, is who, not how, right? And I think that's something that you and I touched on our conversation, on our call last week, right? Is who, not how, finding the right business partners to help you scale up. And really from your first experience, you went with the wrong partner, but you learned so much from it that it allowed you to structure and learn the business that you are now in. So
wouldn't it have been beautiful if I was less being a lone hero, like a single gun trying to do it, and instead, kind of checked my ego a little bit and found a partner who was doing something similar that I could have volunteered some time with or partnered with, where I could have learned from them and avoided the mistakes, then go through the valley and back up. Obviously, going through the valley and back up has given me, certain experiences that, really imprinted on me the value of good partners and the value of understanding things fully. But again, who, not how, find good partners. That's where I'm at today. Find great people that you like to work with, in corporate America, we have to work with the people around us.
Mm.
In real estate, we get to choose the teams we pursue things with.
Yeah.
And you want to pick people that you get along with. Maybe they've got a different skill set, maybe they have the same skill set. But the personalities have to gel. Everyone has to kind of pull together, and it has to be worth doing. Because why go ahead and do this business otherwise? Let's have fun at this. I really enjoy this. You got to have fun at this.
I love that. I love that, man. Dave, thank you so much for being vulnerable and telling us about your path and how you started. Really, really love that. Really, really love that. Now let's dive into mindset, right? Because clearly, going through what you went through takes a specific kind of mindset, because not a lot of people can go through what you've gone through, right? Especially this early on to your real estate journey. So, Dave, one question for you when it comes to mindset, which I think will highlight to our listeners, really who you are, not only as a businessman, but as an individual as well. So, how did you keep yourself motivated to get through the challenges you encountered for that first that first deal, that first experience?
I think I've always been someone who is positive, if that makes sense. My mindset has always been, it's solvable with enough time, enough resources, the right people around you. Again, back to the two things that I know kind of make me tick, which is solving problems and relationships. Those are not unrelated. Those are not mutually exclusive. Those run hand in hand. Mm-hmm. So while I was going through this, I knew I needed to find help and a way to solve it. And really, that problem solving kicks in. Like, these huge dollars and these huge projects, when you look at from the start to the end, are overwhelming. But my history and whether it's technology or the startups or anything I'm doing, is always about decomposing these big, hairy things that look too big and scary into smaller, manageable things. I mean, if you talk about goal setting, you talk about the way people doing, and I'm sure you've heard people talk about SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable. It's just about decomposing it. So in that project, in every project, I'm just looking at what are the current problems, how do we break them down, and who do we need to solve them, or how do we need to solve them? And as long as everything is solvable, there's always something to do, and it's positive to do. And the trick is to make sure that you always find yourself in a play with people around you to help you solve the problems if they feel bigger than you.
Yeah, very, very well said. Very, very well said. And I couldn't agree with it more, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to solving problems and overcoming challenges, right? Personally, I like to leverage other people's skills and knowledge to overcome those challenges, especially if it's the first time that I'm encountering those challenges. And you being the natural, problem solver that you are, I can see how you systematize every challenges that you may come across in order to overcome them, right? So I definitely admire that about you. Dave, I have had an amazing time talking to you. I mean, you are not only a wealth of knowledge, but you're also a very personable guy, which I appreciate. Final questions for you here, and these questions are tailored specifically for you, right? Specifically for you and to you, mostly, just to find out what you're currently working on. What are your goals for, first quarter and as we head into this new year? And really to find out where people can come in and connect with you and work with you, right? So what are your goals for the rest of this year, 2023?
I would like to close on at least 4 new projects this year. They can be value-add apartments or developments. As luck has it, I already have 2 value-add apartment buildings that are going to close in January, so I'll have to upraise, make those goals a little bit bigger than where we started from.
I love that.
But the business that we're in has 2 sides of it. One is capital. So I'm always looking for investors that have a similar mindset to mine or that would benefit from being a part of these types of projects. And the second is partners on the deal side. I'm not looking to do, I think we've talked about this before, like I don't pick a project. I pick the people first, then I confirm the location they're in, and then the projects come. And I hope to have a long relationship with everyone doing that. So people who are kind of getting started, people who are finding projects but need help getting over the finish line, either one of those sides are things that I love putting those pieces together. I love working with people to do it. For me personally, in our goals though, and projecting out, we're doing bigger deals. So we're moving bigger and bigger. You know, our subdivisions are getting bigger, but more importantly, our value add deals and who we have as investors are getting bigger. And, you know, it's exciting. I don't know how big we'll get, because there is going to be a certain point where I want to keep the lifestyle piece of it. I get to do this. I love to do this. Time is our most precious piece here in anything that we do. And so the trick is devoting the right amount of time to the right amount of people and reserving enough for your family, your friends, and the things that make it important to do what we do.
Love that.
So hopefully that helps answer. And again, this has been delightful. I really am honored to have been invited on here, and I love talking with Tinny. So this was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Now, 2 last questions for you, Dave. Thank you so much for sharing what your goals are this year. What is one thing that would be able to help you in your business right now, or one person or one team member that will be able to help you scale up to where you are looking to get at this year?
Two things. I would love to find a 250 unit apartment complex that has deep value add in a great area. But I'd also love to find an operations associate or someone who, you know, wants to get involved in the business. Because again, this is about people, and the more people in our orbits that are positive, that are kind of all pulling in the same direction, all that is, you know, a force multiplier. You know, it's like adding, you know, gas to the fire. It's so much fun, and just kind of gets you pushing.
Love that. I love that. Dave, I've had an amazing time speaking with you, as you said, and you know, you are an operator. Like, you are doing this, you are in the business. And you know, for all of our listeners out there, if you are an operations associate and you are looking to learn the business, and you are experienced and you have knowledge in this industry, please reach out to Dave. And if you are an investor as well, or you are looking to get started investing, you know, Dave specializes in capital preservation and equity multiple deals. As he mentions, he looks for value add apartment buildings. This is an amazing asset class to grow your wealth. Please reach out to Dave. He is an operator. He has been doing this. He is in the business. So please reach out to Dave. Dave.
Yep. And if anyone would like to learn more, please feel free to visit the website, www.dwcapitalllc.com or investwithdw.com, and you can learn more about me. Feel free. We've got a lot of educational content as well. And we just launched a new website this year. So if you've got feedback on that, I'd love that as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Guys, it's been Tinny Collin and Dave, problem solving Weinstock, signing off.